Hi, it's Lucy, and today I'm here to do my catch-up wrap-up number 2. Ooh, that rhymes. I'm a rapper. The purpose of these wrap-ups is to catch up on the wrap-ups that I missed between July and September. I already posted the one for September, which is catch-up wrap-up number 1. I'm going backwards for funsies, so this features the books that I read in August. I actually read 12 books in August. 7 of them were The Chronicles of Narnia, which I did a whole reading vlog. I read the entire Chronicles of Narnia in 48 hours. If you are interested in watching that video, it will be linked down below and in the cards. Since I did a whole reading vlog solely focused on those books, I will not be talking about them in this video, so I have 5 books to talk to you guys about, and I will be talking about them in chronological order. The first book that I have is Paper Girls Volume 6. This is the final volume in the Paper Girls comic book series, which is a sci-fi series which follows a group of paper girls in the 80s after something really weird happens during their morning paper row. I gave this 4 stars. I enjoyed this both as an installment in the series and an end to the series. This series is honestly really confusing. Slight spoiler, I think you are able to figure out by the end of the first volume, but this does feature time travel, which is one of my least favorite tropes, so that was always going to be negative towards it, honestly, because time travel never makes sense. No matter what you do, it cannot make sense. I thought the ending of this volume fit the series, and I enjoyed the ride we got to go on with the girls. I'm glad to have gotten to know these characters. They all have like distinct personalities, and it was a fun read, but unfortunately, especially because I'm doing this now 4 months into the future, I don't see this as a series that sticks with me, and honestly, it didn't really stick with me because I was planning this video and I forgot I read it. So there's that. I think overall as a series, it was a little too confusing for me because most people who read the first volume are like, I have no idea what's going on, and they just keep going. And you do learn more and more what's going on, but I just think overall it was too confusing for me personally and my pea brain, to really stick with me, for me to like really fall in love with it. So there's that. I do recommend, if you do want to read this comic book series, trying to read them all together, closer together. I think I read like volumes 3 to 5, like in close succession, and I think I had the best time with those. So I do recommend trying to read them all at once. I am pretty sure they are all on the Hoopla app. At least a few of them are on the Hoopla app. So if your library does that, check that out. Next we have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I received an e-arc from the publisher in exchange for an honest review. When Enchanted Jones wakes up covered in blood with no memory of the night before, no one, the police and Corey's fans included, has more questions than she does. The story takes place in a sort of dual timeline, with the majority of the story being told before the night that we see in the first chapter, or the morning I should say, and then there's interspersed chapters of that morning. In the before time, we follow Enchanted, an aspiring singer, become legendary R&B artist Corey Field's protege, and watch how her dream slowly becomes a nightmare. This book has so many trigger warnings. I do have a list, but I don't even know if that's all of them. I'm not a mental health professional. I don't have any real triggers or anything, so I don't know. I wrote down grooming, emotional manipulation, pedophilia, sexual assault, rape, child abuse, kidnapping, addiction, revenge porn, and suicidal ideation. I don't know if there's more, but I do want to make note that this is an incredibly heavy story and it deals with a lot of intense subject matter. So please be aware of that before you go in. This is YA, but it's still definitely hard to read at times. In case it wasn't clear from the synopsis I gave, this is meant to be a sort of fictionalized version of what happened with the R. Kelly cases. This isn't like a one-to-one comparison, but it's just an idea of something like that, if that makes sense. As a story, I was incredibly engaged while reading. How could I not be with a setup like that? It was predictable in the sense that Corey ends up being a bad person. So while you're reading, you're like, Enchanted, no. But the story still makes you hope that she'll choose a different path, even though she didn't. It also makes it incredibly easy to understand how someone can end up in that position. In a lot of ways, Enchanted is the ideal. She goes to a relatively good school. She's a good student. She comes from a 2-parent household, and her family isn't drowning in poverty. They are not as well off as some of the people she knows, but they, I think, are like middle class to like lower middle class. And yet Even with all this going for her, she's still vulnerable to having this happen to her. This story also tackles situations like this in relation to Black girls and women specifically, and how so often we're not believed or victim blamed or just ignored entirely. Like I mentioned, the writing throughout the story is very engaging and it makes it very, very hard to put down. You want to know what happens next. You really feel for Enchanted, not just because of the situation, but because I believe that Jackson did a good job of making her a well-rounded character. You can really feel how she feels about her siblings and her parents, and how she really does want to love Corey despite who he is and how he's treating her. It's really hard to say I enjoyed the story because of the subject matter, but I think the story did what it set out to do, and I think it did it well. This has an ending that Tiffany D. Jackson is known for, or the type of ending that she's known for, so it is very divisive. I didn't mind it. I think I'm kind of in the middle. I thought it was kind of unnecessary for it to end in that specific way, but I think it also does what Jackson set out to do, and she wants to make the reader question things. Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This is a YA high fantasy story where we follow Tarisai, who has grown up in the care of her absent mother known as the Lady. The Lady leaves her to be cared for by servants and only shows up every once in a while, leaving Tarisai desperate for warmth and love. One day when Tarisai is 11, on one of the lady's few visits, she sends Tarisai away to the capital so that she can be entered in the competition to become one of the Crown Prince's 11. In this kingdom, the royal family has a special power known as the Ray, and they can use this Ray to connect to 11 other people in order to protect themselves from harm. Those people that are connected by the Ray become closer than family, so you can see how this would be especially interesting to Tarisai, who is desperate for love. However, there's a catch, as Tarisai ends up being cursed by the Lady to kill the Crown Prince once she gains his trust. So this book follows the intense journey of Tarisai attempting to resist and forge a new path for herself. So I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. It was so good. I wasn't planning to do a full video review because next year when the second book comes out, I was planning to do a reading vlog where I reread this and review it in that video. But I was looking at my Goodreads review when I was planning this video, and I was like, this is a pretty detailed Goodreads review. I could probably just make a review video out of that. So I'm going to do that. So this section of the wrap-up won't be as detailed. The video review will come out soonish. You know how I am with putting videos out on time, but it's coming. And I want to give this book as much promo as possible. I didn't do as good of a job. As you can see, I'm doing this catch-up wrap-up. And I waited to talk about it because I thought I was going to do the wrap up in a timely manner so I could talk about it more eventually, but then I didn't. And I want everyone to know that I love this book. I think it is the best book to come out in 2020. Obviously, I didn't read every book that came out in 2020, but it was my favorite book of the year. It reminded me that I could love books. The characters jump off the page and you feel for every single one. Watching Tarisai grow up was truly fascinating because the book takes place over such a long period of time, which I really, really enjoyed. The side characters didn't feel shoved to the side either. They felt like they each had places in the story and they felt like they were developed as well. There's a romance in here that I really enjoyed. It doesn't take the path that you would expect it to take, and I really like that. This has one of the best villains I've ever read because the book does such a good job at acknowledging gray area and also deals with the complicated relationship that you have with your parents, and I thought it did it so well. The book also manages to pack a lot of discussion of various topics such as general trauma, systemic oppression, and the trouble with assimilation, and everything that was discussed that had a place in the story felt like it was brought in naturally and not shoehorned in, like a lot of social justice topics can feel at times. The world also feels truly expansive. I look forward to the world building that we'll get in the second book, I hope, and I found the world along with the use of the magic system interesting. I forgot to mention in the synopsis, but certain people in the world have gifts that they can use, and that's why Tarisai is sent to the Council of 11. You need to have a gift to be part of it. Overall, this was one of the best reading experiences that I've had in a long time. If you want more detailed thoughts, the review video is coming, or you can check out my Goodreads. And yeah, I loved it. If you haven't already read it, I absolutely recommend it. Tell Me Again How a Crush Should Feel by Sara Farizan. We follow high school junior Layla as she struggles with feeling like an outcast at her school, not just because of her Persian heritage, but also because she likes girls. When a beautiful new girl shows up, Layla starts taking risks she never thought she would, especially when the attraction seems like it might be mutual. Layla ends up reconnecting with an old friend to discuss what's going on and how she's feeling, and she realizes that her classmates are more than meets the eye and might have more going on than previously thought. I gave this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed reading this, but I know that there are problematic elements to the story, and I want to acknowledge that. I had fun reading it, and even though the story deals with some tougher topics, the story still manages to feel light. I liked getting insight into Layla, her culture, her relationships, and her coming to terms with being a lesbian. The author is Persian, so I would assume that the cultural references and things come from her experiences. It was nice to have that inclusion in the story, and specifically how the main character's sexuality fit into that. I really appreciated the discussions Layla has with her parents, and I imagine LGBTQ plus people from similar cultures would feel the same. It was also fun seeing Layla grow as a person in the story. Like a lot of teenagers, she's really stuck in her own head, but we get to see her like come out of that and like really acknowledge like other people are people too, and I thought that was fun. The main love interest is horrible, but she's supposed to be like, that's the main element of the story. There is like a side love interest kind of, and that story was really sweet to see. Like I mentioned in the beginning of me talking about this book, I do want to acknowledge that other reviews have noted that the main love interest is portrayed in a biphobic way. It is never stated that the main love interest is bi, but she is portrayed to have an attraction to multiple genders, and she does fall into the promiscuous bisexual trope, and not to mention she's really just straight up evil. So it's not the most nuanced portrayal, and I do want to note that. Overall, I did enjoy reading this, but I can see why it's not for everyone. And the last book that I read was They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman. I received an ARC from Penguin Teen, so thank you to them for letting me read this book. This was a fun read, but it wasn't as great as I was expecting. This follows Jill, who during her freshman year, her best friend was killed by her boyfriend. He confessed and the case was closed, and so Jill tried to move on. Now it's 3 years later and Jill's senior year, she's ready to take on the world. She is a member of her prep school's secret society. She's sure that it's going to be her year. But then she starts getting text messages proclaiming her best friend's former boyfriend's innocence, and so Jill starts to question things and she vows to find out what really happened. This was a fun read, but it wasn't as great as I wanted it to be, unfortunately. I was expecting more dark academia vibes, but most of the book is taken over by regular high school problems. The dark academia aspect didn't really feel dark enough, if that makes sense. Most of the dark academia aspect just felt like regular pranks and stuff, and this also felt like it would be more murder mystery, but it was just taken over by high school problems for the majority of it instead of the mystery. So the middle of the book dragged quite a lot for me because I wanted to get to the mystery. Speaking of the murder mystery, whodunit was pretty predictable. As soon as you meet the character, you're like, he did it, and then you end the book and you're like, he did it. So I don't consider myself a great guesser, so I was pretty disappointed that I did guess it, because to me that's not a great sign. Like, I honestly don't try and like put puzzle pieces together and stuff when I'm reading mysteries and stuff like that. I just kind of go along for the ride. Sometimes I have like a guess, but usually it's wrong because I'm not really good at doing the puzzle pieces and everything, so I was especially disappointed at that. And also there weren't really a lot of puzzle pieces. It seemed pretty obvious. The players, the secret society of the high school, didn't feel as ominous as I thought they should. There just wasn't enough of that kind of atmosphere in the writing of the book. Like I mentioned, the book mostly deals with regular high school problems, specifically the main character Jill's problems. She deals with the feelings of growing apart from your friends, wondering how your life will change after high school, etc. It also deals with the aspect of her feeling out of place among her rich friends, and like they have everything paid for, but she'll need a scholarship to go to college. I enjoyed these aspects of the story, but I do wish there was less of it because I just felt like it took up so much of the story, and like those are fine for like a regular contemporary, but I really wanted some mystery going on instead of that, so it just wasn't as fun to read. Overall, I did have fun reading this. I think it was a different take rather than being just straight up rich people's problems. There was like aspects of other things, of like real things that teens go through, so I like that, but it just felt kind of flat to me. So those are all the books that I read in August. That was Catch Up Wrap Up number 2. Stay tuned for Catch Up Wrap Up number 3, where I talk about the books I read in July. When is that coming? Don't ask, okay? It'll come when it comes, okay? In the comments down below, let me know what you read in August. If you can think back that far, if you would prefer to forget, maybe, I don't know. Let me know what you read in December. In the comments down below, give me a star emoji for no reason. I just want it. give it to me so I can collect all the star emojis and sit on my star emoji throne. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel because I make more videos where I talk about books, and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I post a video. Follow me on my social media. I have Goodreads, Twitter, and Instagram all in the description box. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!